If you happen to be in Jamaica at one of the Kaya dentistry that is located throughout the island, you would be greeted by the symbol of Ganesha. And apart from the island, mostly you would see the positioning of this archetype really in at the entrance of buildings and homes and centers. And what this really is telling you, the archetypal meaning behind the archetype, or the god or goddesses or symbol, whether it's a picture, a word, a phrase, or a symbol. In particularly with Ganesha at the entrance, it's telling you that when you embody this frequency and the vibration of your highest self, you enter the place of the Most High. So let's do a little bit of rewind in, over ages and millennia. Human beings have been consuming medicinal plants or herbal medicines as a way to enter a state of altered consciousness, a state where we're beyond our everyday moments, states of bliss, states of joy and contentment and abundance, awe and wonder. Imagine yourself staring at Mount Himalayas in all of her beauty and glory, covered in clouds and snows. Just imagine yourself looking at that. You can actually feel, even though you're not in front of Mount Himalayas, if you imagine yourself looking at it, just standing there in her beauty in front of you, you can actually feel that emotions flooding in your body, awe and wonder and bliss. So that state of bliss that you would feel when you stare at something of beauty and grace is that state that we all want to achieve when we're actually embodying our highest self, most expansive self, best version of yourself, ideal self, the future self, whatever word you choose to describe that version of yourself. And how do we actually enter that place of the Most High, that state of expansion, that state of awareness and consciousness? And as we talked about before, persons and over the years have been approaching the use of medicinal plants and herbs. So to enter that state of consciousness, whether it's psilocybin, ayahuasca, or weed in general, and there are many other plants which out there that I'm not sure about, but you can check that out. But what if we can enter this state of expansion, this our highest self, without reaching for alternatives or things outside ourselves? What if we can attune to those states, whenever we want, wherever we are, just to have that refreshment in our everyday moments? Wouldn't that be nice? And this is the teachings of ancient wisdom that have been left for us to go back to over the years, so we can remember the portals, remember the codes, remember the paths that is always there for us to enter whenever we feel lost, whenever we need to bounce back in our lives. And one of the work that I find very fascinating in this approach, in this area of becoming our highest selves, embodying our true color, is the use of archetypes. Ask yourself this question. We are living in this fantastic age of 2025 where we are dwelling and dealing with AI, and beyond all of that, these archetypes and metaphorical representations in ancient text, you know, they're still here. They have survived ages, they have survived generations and centuries. It has to be an important reason why they've survived, because they are part of us, they're part of our collective consciousness. They're not myth or or just mere symbols and art, but within the symbol, within the sound, or within the mantra or the words or the code, these are very much portals that we enter, which our body remembers. Our body feel that resonance far before our mind can even comprehend. And that is why, because these memories and these emotions of feelings are very much stored in your nervous system that is located throughout your body. And when we look and work with archetypes, we may not fully understand what it means or what it's trying to tell us, but the body remembers. As soon as you bring that image or a word that is aligned with the meaning of that archetype or that symbol, as when we bring it into our awareness by just looking at it, by reading about it, or chanting or speaking about it, automatically it enters your awareness. And that's all you need. You don't need to understand it, you need to let it be in your awareness. And as we talked about in a previous episode, every intention, belief, emotion, feeling, within the intention and the belief contain the mechanism for its own fulfillment. So let's go back to Jamaica. When you're there and at one of the Kaya dentistry, you're often greeted by this symbol of Ganesha, and it could be another symbol depending on wherever places you go to, in that cultural background of that tourist site or village or area. And so what that really tells you is, when we look at our own lives, when we look at our own situations and situations in our life, we often ask, ourselves, why am I like this? And why am I not there as yet? But beyond the physical representations that the eyes can only see, is within our consciousness, there are patterns that have been imprinted in our lives, from childhood through generations, and societal conditioning, which we may not very much understand how they impact our lives, our choices, our actions, and our decisions, until we try to reflect on where we are and exactly where we intend to go. And why I like to work with these archetypes is, when you look at an archetype, they're often holding some sort of symbols, whether the clothing, a headdress, a weapon, or a book, or colors in particularly. And these colors, these symbols, each part of the archetype, there's a very much contains meaning which you can use as stepping stones to enter that expansive state of your beingness, who you want to become. And exactly why is Ganesha sitting in front of the entrance of halls and homes and shops wherever you go? And sometimes you may see the Buddha, or you may see different types of gods and goddesses. What it's really telling you is that for us to enter that state of consciousness, that state of expansiveness which we intend to aspire for ourselves, as we would feel when we use medicinal herbs, when we look at the archetype, it's really telling us that this is me in an altered state. It's not something outside of myself. But when I go through certain areas in my life, and when I try to detox myself and from patterns, from past patterns and impressions that have blocked me throughout my life, whether it's in your love life, in your finances, in your health, in your lifestyle, the reason why I'm not there as yet, or I want to go, is because my ideas, my thoughts, my wants, and my desires, and my intentions, they are being filtered through these blockages. And these blockages are very much rooted, like I talked about before, in generational traumas and childhood wounds and societal conditioning. And until we recognize these blockages and not holding on to them, you may feel that would have forgotten these imprints, but they're still there in your subconscious until you let go of these blockages and then make space for that vastness and that expansive self of who we aspire for ourselves. And when we clear that space, really, this archetype can now express itself through us. That's really what these symbols are telling us. So they are waiting to be birthed through you. They want to create and express through you. But the past that we keep holding on to, the vocabulary and the languages that we use, continue to create blockages, and our actions and our words are being filtered again through these words which we keep repeating, because repetition of the same ideas and thoughts and chanting of the same ideas and thoughts are very much building these walls and blockages and not allowing these archetypes or highest expressions to flow through you. So that's really why you would find Ganesha or the laughing Buddha or Lakshmi or Athena or Zeus at the entrance. They want to be birthed through you, but they're waiting on you to let go of the bodily sensations and tensions and constrictions that is keeping us feeling so heavy and uprooted. And exactly how can we make way? How can we access these high state, expansive states of consciousness? And when you look at these archetypes, they're very much states of consciousness, states of awareness, the states where we want to be. Because when we're at this highest self, this version of ourselves, no longer are we attuned to generational traumas and childhood wounds and societal conditioning. We would have forgive and forgot, let go of the things that no longer serve us. The things are not helping us to expand and grow and stretch. And I think, we share a common desire as a collective to grow and expand and just experience this life through our humanness, through our beingness, and beyond everyday routines, waking up, going to work, clock out and going back home, and wake up again and going to work and school. Wouldn't we want to expand and experience more of this vastness of this lifetime? And of course, that is exactly why these archetypes and spiritual content and ancient wisdom have survived ages and millennia. The temples and the mosque and the books and the rituals, they're still here because there are portals for us to enter that states of consciousness, our highest selves, our most expansive selves. So if if you're one of the few who would have packed away their books and their archetypes because they no longer believe, maybe we want to bring them back and put them where we can see them. Because by just looking at an image of something with deep symbolic meaning, you're inviting that meaning into your awareness. Whether it's a book, whether it's a picture, you put it there so that you can invite them in your awareness. As much as we wake up and we look at the news, we read the newspaper, violence and war and politics and climate change. I mean, these are things that we choose to look at as opposed to things that we want to expand our awareness. I don't see how, looking at the news or reading every article on war and climate change and political uprootedness can actually expand your awareness. What if we go on a fasting to kind of detox and make way for some newness in your life? Replace the news with maybe spiritual content or positive content that we can learn about ourselves, content that we can actually expand our consciousness, expand our states of awareness beyond the news, beyond climate change, beyond what's happening in the neighborhood. These are everyday routines, really, but we have access to so much information, knowledge, and wisdom, which we can use to empower and inspire us in our everyday moments. And when you start to work with content and information that actually is healing and fulfilling, you start to see very much changes in how you experience different areas in your life, whether it's work, whether it's your relationship, whether it's your health, your money. Because as you place your attention on these symbols, and remember also archetypes and these symbols, as they are states of consciousness, they are within these symbols, they have embedded intentions. So as we talked about before in most of our episodes, where you place your attention, that intention really expands in your life. What has your attention, and is your attention aligned with your intention, and do you attend to your intention repeatedly? So when we choose to place our attention in the media, and war and violence and danger and outrage, that becomes our intention. And how exactly is that improving our lives? Right? Ask yourself that. So whatever we switch the content, we place our attention in what our ancient masters have been trying to teach us for ages. Nature, giving our attention, spending time in nature, spending our time and contents that can heal us and fulfill us. And that becomes your intention, and it grows and expands in different areas in your life. So, and one thing that we have been mistaken for quite some time is we treat these symbols really as aspects outside ourselves. Like, we worship them like deities and gods and goddesses. But very much they are there to remind us of our highest aspirations, of our highest selves. And we can tap into those portals and those higher states of beingness by just becoming the archetype that very much resonate with you. And as you start to invite these states, highest states of consciousness in your everyday moments. From that state, you expand into a different state, and there you start to feel more drawn to different archetypes, whether Ganesha, or whether it's Lakshmi or Athena or Zeus, and you start to find all these miraculous transformations in your life, really. And as you're listening to this podcast episode, you may consider, gee, Pratima, I like your content, but it sounds a little bit too woo for me. Yeah, woo woo, because there is not much information out there that really can educate us and these content, right? And for that, that's why we treated it as woo, because there's quite some ignorance about this topic. But as we give it our attention, it becomes part of our awareness and our consciousness, and then we start to feel and embody and see this transformation in our lives, and then you will say, Pratima was right all of this time. And so I would like to share with you an experience that I've had with working with these archetypes. I've talked about this a million times, and I asked for signs of swans showing that I'm aligned with this project that I want to start, and days and weeks after I saw these signs. And what this is really telling you is that everything is connected. We're all connected. And what does that mean, that everything is connected? When you look at your personal life, when you look at your environment, your inner and outer environment, it is all connected. So if you feel very much constriction in your body, if you feel there's not much, there's fear, there's mostly fear and scarcity and a lack, as opposed to feeling, clarity and freedom and abundance in your life, that tells you, that reflects whatever you're feeling in the inside is very much reflected on the outside. Our outer world is very much a mirror of who we are within, how we're feeling, our state of being is within, and this outer world is very much mirrored through our relationships, our friendships, our job, our finances, financial situations, and your lifestyle. And if you're not pleased with what's happening in your relationships, what's happening in your bank account, what's happening at a workplace, that's very much educational for you. So now you will want to reverse that and use that as a self-inquiry moment within yourself, which becomes your a daily meditational practice. And then you start asking yourself questions. What is this situation's mirroring in me? When I look at my finances, maybe there's some traits of a lack and insecurity and survival that's very much holding me back. And how can I start embody this high state of beingness that I want to see? And when I do that, transforms my physical environment. In the same way, if we look at our relationships, what is my partner mirroring me? Why is he or she acting in this way of jealousy or hatred, or just not happy all the time? So what is this situation mirroring me? Maybe because I still have traits of unworthiness. Maybe I still have traits of feeling that I'm not worthy enough. There is a lack of self-love there. So when I start to embody that highest aspect of myself, love and abundance and clarity, that embodiment of which is a higher state of beingness, that starts to transform and bend my relationships, bend my finances how I want it to be. And when we can give this, if we give this teaching, and this is nothing new, all of this has been in the books, in the scriptures, the ancient books, which our spiritual teachers left for us for ages. But somehow the miscommunications have been lost, but it's always there, and we can always go back to and relearn and expand our lives and build deeper and more meaningful relationships and work culture and health and finances in our lives. And when you look at it this way, you know, what we very much need, and our heart's deepest desire is really fulfillment. We want to feel fulfilled in our relationships. We want to feel fulfilled in our careers and work. We want to feel fulfilled in our health. We want to feel fulfilled in our finances and our lifestyle. So fulfillment really happens when you're in that state of expansion, when you're in that state of beingness, that state of love and bliss and awe and wonder. And you enter that state when you are rooted in your highest self, your ideal self. And that self really is connecting with a higher state of beingness. However, whichever word you choose to describe that version of yourself. So when you look at it that way, this is all we want. But we translate that want, we translate that desire and that fulfillment into objects. And we say, okay, I want this partner, I want this car, this is the amount of money I want to make this month, I want that shoe, I want that house. And what we fail to recognize is fulfillment, that desire, that intention is very much ourselves. When we become that version of ourselves, when we become that person who is really fulfilled, who has everything going, love, career, relationship, lifestyle, money, this is my highest self, contentment and fulfillment. But the trick is to constantly feeling that state of expansion, constantly feeling your expansive self, constantly feeling fulfilled and abundant and alive in your everyday moments, falling in love with your everyday moments, because your inner world, your inner environment, your state of consciousness, your state of beingness, how are you being? That dictates what happens in your life, every area of your life. So if you in a phase where you want to have some changes, it starts within. No chasing on the outside, no getting anxious on the outside, but just step into that highest aspect of yourself. And this is what the archetypes are there to nourish you. When you look at these archetypes, they're always they're regal and they're royal and they're beautiful form and identity, very much rooted in calmness and abundance and awe and wonder. So they are mirroring that aspect of us, that I can reach that state. That is my birthright, my heritage. But I need to make space for this high self to express and birth through me. And every time we chase, every time we self-sabotage, we keep blocking this expression of our expansiveness. And this tells you how much this work, self-personal growth is very much an internal journey. Never mind what's happening in the outside. When we start to spend the time of exactly understanding our state of awareness, our beingness, that's all it takes. Ask yourself this question right now. How are you being right now? What is your state of beingness and awareness? How are you being? Are you being grumpy? Are you being confused? Are you being angry? Are you being joyful? Are you being happy? Are you being fulfilled and content? Are you being sad? Are you being worried? Every time you feel that kind of heaviness, in your body, and you feel things not going the way you want, step into that self-inquiry moment and ask yourself, how am I being right now? Is this the state I would feel when I become my highest self? The version of me who is living the life that I want now, how would she feel right now? Obviously, she would be feeling happy and contentment because she has everything that she wants right now. So we can step into that state of awareness, that state of beingness, every time when we feel we're being pulled back and filtered through those childhood imprints and those societal conditioning and generational traumas. As we keep feeling that we're being filtered through those wounds and those traumas, we step back into that higher state of beingness, and we keep doing it and repeating it, repetition, until that filter, that old Pat is no longer within you, because that newness, that expansive awareness would have become your embodiment. And now that highest version, all of the archetypes you admire, the creativity and the joy and the abundance, can now express and birth through you. And this very much, tells us how much, when we understand this state of knowingness, we can very much use it to better make our New Year's resolutions. As you know, the New Year is just around the corner, and many times we make our New Year resolutions with a sort of reversed state of beingness. So we say, I'm making a resolution to lose weight, I'm making the resolution to make this amount of money, I'm making this resolution to getting more fit. When you write down a list of your resolutions, which is very much your intentions or your sankalpa, as you look at them, if you look at it this way, in a sort of awareness, you're entering the new year with a state of lack, with a state of survival mode, because everything there is, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I want this. So what if we start making our resolutions in a way as if you're entering this new year as the person I already am? I'm entering this new year as a person who holds the amount, the income and the finances in her bank account. I'm entering this new year as the person who has the perfect health that I want. I am entering this new year as the person who has the perfect lifestyle and the perfect career and the perfect home. So you do see how that state of awareness would have shifted from a state of lack to this state of already fulfilled. So this makes you wonder, like, for the past years, without this knowledge, we all was kind of entering a new year with this state of lack, really. And that tells you why most New Year's resolutions never really pass until the third week, after the third week of January. And this wisdom, use of archetypes, embodying your highest self in everyday moments, choosing what to give your attention to, and finding joy in everyday moments are very much part of the joy of playfulness, bringing back that state of playfulness in our everyday moments. It's really who we are, being playful, nonchalant. And as you listen to this, wisdom, which is not new again. This is all in the ancient books and scriptures and represented in these archetypes. It tells you how much we have forgotten our true nature. It tells you how much, we've strayed too long from our essence, from our heritage, our inheritance. And that heritage really is embodying the emotions and creating the thoughts and the feelings, which we really want, as opposed to giving our attention to things that we don't want in our life. And here is just when we gather all of our archetypes, when we gather, that list of what we really want to see happen in our lives, when we gather our intentions and make them visible, make them known, and make them be aware in your consciousness, obviously that's going to expand because that's where your attention is. And there is so much connection and relation with science and spirituality, which has become a joy to learn and to expand and experience. And at the bottom of all of this really is the knowledge, the wisdom of archetypes and emotions and beliefs and thoughts and patterns. It's all reminding you to feel safe in your body and to feel joy and feel free and being rooted in groundedness and stillness, because that is home. Calmness and love and peace. We want to be in this state of consciousness as much as we can, because at this point of peace and safety, there is coherence. The mind, the body, the heart, the spirit, everything is aligned. And when everything is in coherence, that's when the beauty and the abundance ripples in your outer reality. That's how coherence is made visible, through the awe and wonder in every area in your life, fulfillment, spontaneity, happiness, and joy. And it all starts with your intention and your attention. What is your focus? What do you choose to believe? What emotions do you choose to dwell in your everyday moments? And most importantly, being playful. Fall in love with playfulness again and make it part of your everyday moments, and falling in love with everyday moments as much as you can. Make life, make your activities, your job, your partner, your neighbor, make everything around you your partner and your friend, and fall in love with it. See the good in everything around you. And as you work from that state of consciousness, you understand that you decide and you dictate from within what you choose to desire in your outside world. Never mind what's happening on the outside. When you approach life with that state of beingness, of love and contentment and playfulness and joy, that projection ripples outside of yourself. And that's really what wealth really means. Wealth is a state of awareness. It's a state of beingness. It's not chasing, it's not acquiring. It's a state that you choose to feel safe and fulfilled in. And from that state, your reality eventually bends and aligns to that projection that you choose to lead through it. Until next time, have a good time.